It's been screwed down, tightened up. Now I'm going to mix some thin set. So as you can see, it's been screwed down, tightened up, no squeaks. This is a double layer of plywood on here. I am going to install the Ditra now. Ditra's over here. That's the Ditra over there. Uncoupling. It's very important. Make sure you vacuum the floor and get all the dust off it. Now I'm gonna wipe it down with some water. I'm gonna cut in all the Ditra, and then when I go to install it, I'm gonna wipe the floor down with water and get any residual dust out, and then flat trowel plywood, then notch it out with the Ditra trowel, and then install my Ditra, my uncoupling membrane. So let's go ahead and do that.
So why am I dampening the floor? Why am I sponging it down? Well, there are actually two reasons. The first reason is you vacuum the floor and you got as much dust off as possible. Sponging it down removes a lot of the residual dust. So the floor is going to be as clean as it possibly can be. The second reason is because plywood is very porous. It will suck moisture out of the thin set, and you don't want to suck all the moisture out of the thin set because then it won't bond properly. The thin set needs to retain the moisture so that it can grow its crystals and bond properly. Another thing that you need to take into consideration is the fact that you have to have the appropriate dry set mortar, known as thin set, that bonds to plywood. In this case, because you're going over plywood, you're going to need to use an ANSI A118.11 thin set or better. I have a video that explains everything about thin set. I will link to that. So there are a few things to take into consideration when installing an uncoupling membrane. Number one, you want to make sure that you have the correct size trowel. If the trowel is too big, you're going to get lumps of mortar under the uncoupling mat. If the trowel is too small, you're not going to have enough mortar to bond the membrane to the substrate. Also, you need to mix the mortar correctly so that it will transfer to the uncoupling membrane. Usually you're going to need to mix it looser than you would for setting tile. Check the directions on the bag for mixing instructions. As I mentioned earlier, you need to choose the correct type of mortar. In this case, it has to be an ANSI A118.11 or better mortar. Also want to make sure you key the mortar into the substrate. By keying, I mean use the flat side of the trowel to spread the mortar onto the substrate, forcing the mortar into the pores of the plywood in this case. Then once you've done that, then you can flip the trowel over, use the notch side of the trowel, and then lay your uncoupling mat into the mortar, and making sure that you actually press the membrane into the mortar, either with a roller or a wooden trowel or something that you can use to actually set the membrane into the mortar, so you can get good transfer from the mortar to the fleece on the back of the uncoupling membrane. So if you want, you can start setting tile immediately. However, I like to wait till the next day so that the mortar under the membrane can set. If you start installing tile right away and you have a large room of tile and you have to lift a tile to adjust it for whatever reason, you run the risk of pulling up the membrane along with the tile. There's a way of doing it so that doesn't happen, but it can happen if you're not careful. And this is how you install an uncoupling membrane. In this case, it's Schluter Ditra.